Hi everyone, my name is Maida and I am in ninth grade. I will be introducing Jill Hagenkord. So Dr. Hagenkord is the co-founder and chief medical officer at MDisrupt, which provides medical diligence for health tech entrepreneurs, investors, and other stakeholders. Jill is a board-certified pathologist with subspecialty boards in molecular genetic pathology.
There's a lot of them now, like looking at this 50. And then the other very visual field is radiology. And so in 1995 was in the first. Is that how long ago is that? That's when I first started getting that question. And I just kind of always thought it's number one, for this machine learning to work, you have to have really robust data going into them. And there's so much of an art to what we do in medicine that I kind of felt pretty safe. Like the easy things can be done, and it's actually a relief. So like automated pap smear review. So usually we would actually have a tech go through and review, and if there was anything abnormal, send it to the pathologist to review, and then 10% of all slides had to be reviewed by a pathologist. And that's just because you'd lose your mind if you had to look at that many pap smears all day long, or same with like colon biopsies. And so it's actually a relief when some kind of technology comes along and takes those easy things away and lets me focus on the hard stuff, so that instead of being exhausted from looking at 9,000 normal pap smears, that I'm actually like fresh and can think carefully about the hard ones. So I don't really see pathologists going away anytime soon, or radiologists. Our jobs are going to change, but I don't think we're going away. Yeah. Yes.
General question: how do, in general, physicians keep up with the health tech, all the new innovations on that field?
Yeah. So my tech colleagues over the last 10 years, I mean, just floored when they realized how far behind the medical world is. I mean, it's probably the farthest behind of any field, hands down. We in healthcare use fax machines, and we won't stop. And every company that everyone I've been at, they're like, oh no, my product's gonna be so awesome that the doctors are gonna go online and order it, and they're not gonna use the fax machine. And never, not one, never happened once. There's still 80% of what they're transmitting comes by fax. And so they don't keep up, is my answer. And so, but part of that is, again, like if you come and like learn more about the healthcare culture, you realize that, because one of my companies was like, we're just gonna give all doctors free iPads, and then they'll be able to order this on their iPads. And they don't realize that a lot of places in the hospital, you don't get any signal. And it's against the law to give doctors iPads, right? So there's just a whole bunch of things where you think you can make some change, and then you run into these illogical things. And so the physicians, the academic centers, right, there's always going to be the ones that are in the research and the cutting edge, and obviously out here in California and Boston and places like that, there's going to be a lot more experience and exposure to tech advancement, but for the most part, think like 1990 is where they're at.
How have you priced your services?
In our entire 6 weeks of existence, the big package, we want to position it to be similar to the other types of diligences, and our understanding of that is that it kind of depends on like what phase of the company you're at, and kind of the scope of how big the evaluation is going to be, but that can be anywhere in the $50 to $75 to even up to $100,000 range, like I said, depending on all of those things. And then the other one the number that we're working with is 10,000, and that would be 10 to 20 hours worth of work, and a 2 or 3 page write-up kind of thing, but not like a big, here's the solution to all your problems, and here's all of the people you can connect with to fill your gaps. But something, we want to have a price point where people can get a light engagement with us and start to learn the value and start to become aware of the things that they haven't been looking at before. Mm-hmm.
One thing I noticed is that option in medical communities is not that good with technology. A friend of mine consults for Taiwanese government on some of the AI initiatives in radiology that I was talking about. And what he was realized is like there's a little bit of friction involved in doing AI enhanced imaging and what's shown on the G or whatever Siemens kind of thing, to the point that he's talking to those manufacturers to show the analysis within those devices. But in general, I get an idea.
Give him one. I can hand over the mic to him, and can use that.
Yes.
I'm almost done with my question. My thing is there's a lot of inertia. Okay, sorry. There's a lot of inertia in medical field, which is the opposite of what you're trying to solve. Do you have any kind of suggestions on how you can get more buy-in?
Data.
Data.
That's it. It's not magic.
What about friction?
Was friction? The way to get past the friction is the data. And then you have to be, you can't just be, number one, you need to be solving a real problem that really exists. A lot of times you'll see engineers come with a technology looking for a problem, and that's usually a pretty good sign you're going to pivot at some point. So make sure you're solving a real, palpable, painful problem. And the good news is there's a lot of them in healthcare. And then you can't just be a little bit better. If you think being a little bit better is going to be enough, you're going to pivot. Because the implementation cost to put something into practice is extremely high. Even to get a doctor to order test A rather than test B, even though the tests are very similar, just even that much change throws the system out of balance. And so you have, and especially if it's a heavy lift kind of implementation that's going to affect many different clinics, that's something that has to be planned for years. So it's good planning. Use experienced people who have had successful implementations into a healthcare system, and just data. Yeah.
I mean, can you think of any incentives? Because like you said, sometimes radiologists or pathologists think that they're going to lose their jobs. So sometimes they kind of have the incentive to not work with these new systems or new products. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I will actually say, I don't know a radiologist or a pathologist who's ever felt that way about AI. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but we all are just so far super relieved when you take that mundane stuff away from us. That said, you do need to be aware of how these different specialties keep their lights on. And an example, immunohistochemistry is done it's a special stain kind of thing that we do on tissue sections to help us understand what proteins are being expressed. And so when a case, like a cancer case gets difficult, we'll do a bunch of immunohistochemistry. Pathologists get reimbursed really well for that. We also get reimbursed really well for looking at colon biopsies. And so if you're inventing something that is going to take away our ability to do immunohistochemistry, like you've got some proteomics assay, the pathologist will fight you to the death. It's out of their cold, dead hands that your test succeeds. So it is good to know whose lunch you're eating. Okay, good. Next,
Any more questions? Go ahead. Okay.
No more? All right, you guys, thanks so much. Those are great questions, really fun.